Hello, and welcome back to another episode of PSA, People, Stories, and Accounting. If this is the first time you're tuning in, we have prior episodes that have really good content. So I suggest going back and listening to some of our prior episodes. I'm Yaakov Jacob.
And I'm Philip Stein.
Thank you again for joining us. So, Philip, we got these new
We have breaking
breaking.
news, and
Yeah.
I would say that you'll break the news, but I'll identify if you are a fence sitter, if you are sitting on that fence, should I come on Aliyah this year? Should I come on Aliyah next year? We have some interesting news for you. So, Yaakov, it's all yours.
Yeah. So, this past week or so, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, how do you pronounce it?
Smotrich, yeah.
Bezalel Smotrich announced a new tax benefit for people coming in 2026 and onwards. It is very interesting because it is totally counter to everything that we've been going through previously. All the advice that we've given previously have been get in quickly because you don't want to have to report your income, and we'll break that down further if you're coming 2026 or later. But now this might flip everything on its head. So
Correct.
we'll get into it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
it's
Philip, when was
you
the
know,
last
I
time that
mean, I think, of course, in Israel, I don't know, well, it's in Israel, but I think someone once said, some politician said, everything ultimately is local. The politics are local, and there's real politics here. I think the politics are one. There's been a lot written recently about how many people have left Israel over the last 2 years, about people, yes, coming back, but how do we incentivize people with talent and skills to come either back to Israel or to come to Israel. So I think the Treasury and the politicians, and we are officially now in an election year. The election will be less than 12 months away. And as you mentioned, the Minister of the Treasury, Bezalel Smotrich, is also running for re-election. He has his own list. He's not doing well in the polls, by the way. So this might be something to help his numbers go up. And it is dramatic. It's sort of a bit something that we're not used to seeing. It's a bit out of the box because usually Israel doesn't like to give things away, okay, even when it appears like it's a good deal. So why don't you share now that we've had all
well,
this buildup, okay?
yeah, well, what was the last time that we had a big update like this in Israel? Would you say it was 2007, 2008?
Yeah, I think the big, legislation that I was also proud to be a part of was when they came out in 2008, which went retro to 2007, giving the 10-year tax holiday, which we've spent a lot of time talking about, helping people take advantage of it. We've also been fortunate enough to have lived through people who were the first beneficiaries of the 10-year exemption, have it expire, and we've shown that you can live even without a 10-year tax holiday, okay? And you can
Yeah.
live happily in Israel. But this, I think, is a quite generous. I think the other was also generous, but this even goes further. So again,
Yeah. So okay, so the details of this new proposal is that, and again, I should start maybe before even saying what it is by just stating that this is not final in any way,
correct.
shape, or form. None of this has actually been legislated. None of this has been put down into writing. This has just been announced as theory and phantom new rules, I should say. But the idea is that this will not get rid of the 10-year holiday in any shape. The 10-year holiday specifically protects people from tax in Israel from outside income. So income that I have from outside of Israel, foreign income, US brokerage accounts, pensions, those types of things, that would be exempt for the first 10 years. What this comes and does is it adds an additional exemption on top of that to Israeli income.
Right.
And that exemption is for 2026 and 2027. It will be up to 1 million shekel of Israeli source income will be taxed at a 0% tax rate. So no tax on the first 1 million shekel of Israeli income. And then in 2028, it's a 10% tax. The following year is a 20% tax. And then 2030 is a 30% tax. So it is a nice 5-year ramp up to paying on Israeli source income as well, which is really kind of crazy if you think about the benefits that could take place from it, right?
Absolutely. And we've always, in order to take advantage of the 10-year tax holiday, well, let me take a step back. We have certainly found across the board that when retirees make Aliyah, or retirees come back to Israel, their active income days are basically over. In other words, they're not working anymore. So as you mentioned, those pensions, which may, from the U.S., their savings account, their brokerage account, rental income, all that stuff, you know, and now they don't have to pay state tax on most of that other than the rental incomes, and they get the social security exemption that we see retirees when they move here, their tax goes down. Okay, their overall tax bill goes down. For people who are still active, working, keeping their U.S. jobs, not necessarily. Okay, but what you're saying here, or this proposal is saying, that you actually could theoretically have a $250,000 a year job. Move it. Just move yourself now to Israel, and you won't pay any Israeli tax on that, even if you do all the work here, sitting in your house or in some office in Israeli. And which you'll probably speak to, your U.S. tax isn't going to be too high either because of the benefits that Israel bestows for people. So it is dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's I I keep on saying this to everyone who asks me that I think Israel is starting to be a better option than Miami in terms of people who are looking to get out of New York and the like. You know, if they're trying to
Uh-huh.
escape New York, trying to escape California, high tax states, instead of moving to Miami or Boca, come to Israel. You can still earn your money and 0% tax in Israel on a lot of that income. The foreign income is going to be exempt, even if you're sitting, like you said, working in your home. It's going to be exempt on a nice amount. It's kind of pretty crazy.
And to
The
you,
biggest difference,
people who are considering Miami, believe me, your summers in Jerusalem will be a lot more pleasant in the evenings than.
absolutely,
Yes, go ahead.
less fear of torrential downpours and tornadoes,
Right.
hurricanes, rather. Like you said, that the added benefit is actually uh, that can be on top of this is really federal taxes, right? Meaning lots of people are asking me, well, if I'm a US citizen anyway, I'll still owe tax on my US income. So, or on my worldwide income. So what's the benefit? I don't pay any tax in Israel. I'll still have to pay tax in the US. But the truth is that there is this foreign earned income exclusion, which up to about 130,000, I think it's higher for 2026. It's like 136,000, I think, for 2026 and onwards, that you will be able to exclude if you are in Israel as a resident. So let's say you come January 1st, 2026, you stay in Israel for the whole year working, you can then exclude on your 2026 tax return $132,000 that will not be taxed in Israel under this new exclusion. And will also, you won't pay tax in the US on the federal side. And because you're not doing the work in the state, as long as you structure correctly, you're not paying state tax either, which means that it's a home run in
And
terms
add
of
to that, Yaakov, if I can interrupt, if a married couple comes and they each have that, they each earn, I'll throw out 125 grand a year. You have now $250,000. You're not paying any income tax at all to either
it
jurisdiction.
is, yeah. It's pretty phenomenal in terms of exemptions, tax exclusions, and really just the whole game plan. I will say that it does mess with a lot of our projections,
Yes,
because now, which is great, it'll take a little bit longer for AI to take over our jobs because each time there's a new variable that comes into play.
right.
When did you make Aliyah? 2025, 2026, 2027? It kind of changes the whole game and dynamic of when things are due and
So,
how
so
much tax
if
you'll
you're
owe.
sitting on the fence, which I referred to at the beginning, and I want to quote our very esteemed colleague who has been on other, not this series of podcasts, but other podcasts of ours, Yair Binyamini, an Israeli tax attorney. He said to us just yesterday, if there is a budget for 2026, we won't get into all of that in terms of how the Israeli budgetary process works in the Knesset. But if there is, he says it's certain that this provision will be in there. Okay. If there's not a budget, then the way it works in Israel, you just take the previous year's budget, continue. So then it would not, probably, unless there was a special vote on this. But there's a real opportunity here. I mean, as you said, 2 years at zero. What is it? 1 year at 10, 1 year at 20, 1 year at 30. If people are concerned about the cost of living here or how can I save up money to buy an apartment? It's like Israel's giving you probably the best savings plan ever offered to anyone with this proposal,
Yeah. So I
and
will I will
hopefully it
add
will
something that's
encourage.
interesting. We've had a lot of people in the past few months who have made Aliyah and consulted with us, And one of the biggest pieces of advice that we're giving them this year in particular is because of the old rules, and we should touch upon that again, maybe, of what's been coming out until just recently, is that not to make that Shnati Staglut election, right? We want them to come in 2025. Don't make that
Mm,
Shnati Staglut election. Become a resident as of 2025, because the rules were up until about a week ago, and they continue to be the case, really, is that if you come before 2026, that 10-year holiday still applies and you don't have to report anything. But if you come as of January 1st, 2026, then you do have to report your worldwide income, even though the 10-year exemption still applies. You have this reporting requirement. And that reporting requirement is such a pain in the neck. It is going to really it's going to create a lot of work
right.
for Israeli accounts, which is phenomenal. But from a taxpayer perspective, it's going to be a real pain for people who have made Aliyah. And the ITA has come out and said, if you make that Shnati Staglut election, it will push off your Aliyah date until after 2025 into 2026. So we've been telling everyone, hey, don't make that election. Now, with these new benefits, it's kind of flipping
Right.
everything on its head, right? And it's
It's
telling
called
everyone, hey, don't make
in
Aliyah
Hebrew.
right now.
In Hebrew, it's called hafuch al hafuch, which I don't know how to translate that, but it just means what you thought the opposite is really now what you should be doing.
It just makes me feel like I'm in a coffee shop and I'm asking for a cappuccino on the face. And the question that comes up now really is, if you make that Shnati Staklut election, let's say people who came in August, because there's a lot of people who came in August, they're still within the 90 days. If they make an election to have that Shnati Staklut apply, maybe they still get within that 2026 date, and these new rules will apply for them. I would say there's
Yeah, that
potential there.
that's a really big insight, and I'll tell you, I know we heard that there's going to be considerable filing requirements for people who, let's say, don't have private companies and don't have LLCs or trusts. It may not. In other words, we were concerned that if you have this filing, then Israel knows what you're earning. But now they're saying, okay, we don't care what you're earning because I mean, is if you're earning less than 1 million shekel, you're on your active income, we don't care. So a lot has changed here. If this proposal goes through, we can give guidance, we can give parameters, but there's still some uncertainties here, and people will have to see what their risk reward quotient is.
So, I mean, I think we could give some general rules that I would say, right? Like if someone is retiring and coming to Israel, right? Then I don't know that this will really be, I would still tell them come before 2026, right?
I
You're going to
agree.
retire. All of your income is going to be passive in nature outside of Israel. You're going to take out your 401ks, your IRAs, your brokerage accounts. Then I don't think that this adds any kind of benefit to them. I would say it makes more sense to come before the beginning of 2026. If someone is actively working, like you said, I would say it really depends how much they're making, but this can be a very, very nice way of saving a lot of taxes.
Yeah, and I think that I was at a board meeting, some other organization that I sit on the board the other day, and someone was complaining that they don't feel that the government, the Jewish agency, have put out enough resources to help people make Aliyah. In other words, resources to encourage them to explain there's not a sufficient budget for it. And this proposal really could make up for a lot of that because this really, it's dollars and cents. People really should look at this as an incentive. I think it's a considerable.
Do you think, I'm just curious for your thoughts here, do you think that this will be enough to attract those founders, high tech CEOs and
Um,
the like?
maybe, but I think those people that we get, those people in the middle or upper middle, who have nice positions, because of the internet, post COVID, working. I just heard of someone in my where I live just moved here and kept their job, very high end job. I think this would be a real attractive thing to add, because if you can save taxes, when I'm thinking in terms of a couple of it, a couple $100,000, and you've been living in a high tax state like New Jersey and New York and California, that's real money. Okay, and I know we know Israel's not the least expensive to live these days, but this could really make it a lot easier. And I think, Jacob, you and I have found, I don't think it's coincidental that, you get these 0 for 2 years, and then there's another, 3-year runoff of the
Right.
lower rates. I think we've found that once a person or people, a family, gets to that 5-year mark, they usually are gonna stay here, okay? I think the No, really,
I
I
think that
think
was no, no. You know what's funny about that is that was exactly my story. We wanted to make Aliyah, my wife and I, and she said, "Okay, we will try it out." And I said, "Okay, I'm cool with that. How long are you talking about though?" And she said, "You know what? We'll try it out for 5 years. If it doesn't work after 5 years, then we'll move back to the States." And I thought she was going to say 2 years. When I heard her say 5 years, I was like, done, like absolutely sold. Like there's no
Mhm.
way. If you're here for 5 years, it is a real test. If it is working, you are not going to
Yeah,
move back. There's
yeah,
not a
I
chance.
think people I don't have the statistics, but just having lived here for almost 50 years, that's what I've seen, and so let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I will say in terms of planning, I think it's a little bit funny and difficult to do with structure planning because we always look at it. Okay, this is the plan for the first 10 years, and this is the plan for after the 10 years. And here it's going to be like each year the tax is going to increase by 10%. 2028, 2029, and 2030. It's going to be like an interesting planning technique. So it definitely throws some ideas that we're going to have to come up with, some plans that we're going to have to do. Also, in terms of structure, right? We have very clear ideas in terms of what works when someone is moving to Israel and working remotely. There's a few different options available to them.
Correct.
Depends what it is that they're doing, how they're doing it, when they're doing it. Now, with this, it's going to come and play an interesting role. One of the unknowns here, for example, is that they're saying, and again, because there's been so little information put out so far, they said it's going to be up to 1 million shekel is going to be exempt from income tax. What about bituach leumi? What about Israeli Social Security bituach leumi tax? That is just as important to kind of see, is that subject to tax or not?
And, might it be indexed to inflation so that by the time you get to year 5, it's not 1 million, it's 1.2, things like that. And of course, if it succeeds, this may become, a permanent sort of part of what Olim can expect, because obviously this is your, and I'm not trying to disparage any group, but this is not to encourage Aliyah from the Ukraine. Okay. This is Western Aliyah. This is from Western Europe or Australia, the US and Canada, I think. And I hope it's certainly, I think I was here, but you have lived here long enough to see how the impact of the million Jews from the former Soviet Union changed the face of this country. And I think if you got another wave like that from the West, it would be an incredible boost to the country overall. So there's a lot of reasons we'd like to see this succeed, and it will also keep us busy, as you say.
Yeah, I get it's also interesting. I'm only thinking about it now, but the indirect effects that this is going to have, meaning let's say you have a giant influx of people coming in, rent is going to go up again. Real estate bubble will continue to grow and grow. Um, we'll see
If
what
you want
happens. It'll
your
be
rent
interesting.
not to go up, you should stay in New York City because
Right.
they're going to freeze rents. That is not a
Yeah.
political endorsement. Okay, the election is over.
But yeah, no, so it's definitely it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out, 2025, 2026. I will say, Um, there is part of a trap that could be coming in this because again, let's say none of this really passes by and
Mm,
people do push off coming from
yeah.
2025 until 2026, and this does not pan out as beneficial as it looks up front. It could be bad. So it's definitely weigh the pros and cons, discuss, with the proper people in terms of, is this something that you should come now, 2025, wait a couple months until 2026, weigh the options, see what it
So
does, and if you already
I'd like
came.
to use this as an opportunity, and I'm going to throw it to you, Jakob, just because we're on top of this. It's something we're going to inform people. We're going to put out ideas, but we don't put out a podcast every day. So if people want to look for breaking news from PSA, what's the best way to keep up and find us?
Sure. So I would say our blog post is regularly updated. Okay, so check our blog post, check our website, www.pstein.com. Go to the resources, blog posts section. You'll find new information there on a regular basis. Alternatively, follow us on LinkedIn. Both PSA, Philip Stein and Associates, and Yaakov Jacob both post regularly to LinkedIn. I have a series of different points about this that is coming out this week in particular.
Right.
So, be aware, keep up, and follow us on LinkedIn, I would say, and check our website. You'll see the
Great.
updates.
Okay. Great.
Fantastic.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Philip,
Thank you
again.
for sharing, and we can hope and pray this will come along. I think it'd be a great thing for us, for the country.
Should be phenomenal. Hopefully, we'll have many more people coming to Israel. And the one thing I will say is as people, the difference between moving here and moving to other countries is everybody wants you here. So everyone that lives here, if you're on the fence, we want you here. Come. The more the merrier.
You, Fen?
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. So signing off. We'll see you soon.